Under past Labor governments, defence funding was cut to 1.56% of the GDP. The Liberal government has raised it to over 2% of the GDP. With China expanding its influence in the Solomon Islands, how will a sudden change in government to a party that is traditionally light on defence spending help bolster foreign policy and mitigate the threat of China?
Well, Thanks very much for the question. I lead a party that's the party of John Curtin. And at Australia's most dire need during World War II, our darkest hour, the country turned to Australia, not with an election, mid-term, to make John Curtin Prime Minister and to lead us during that period. The difference between the Howard government's defence expenditure and the expenditure over the period of the Rudd and Gillard governments was 0.03. That's the only difference that was there. We do face a strategic competition in the region. China is more forward-leading, it's more aggressive. And we've seen that with what has occurred in the Solomons. The Solomons is the greatest foreign policy failure that Australia has had in recent times. They just dropped the ball. We know that China is more aggressive and forward-leaning. What that means is that we do need increased defence expenditure, but increased defence expenditure, which I've committed to being above 2%, but whatever is necessary to defend our national interests, means defence capability. The problem with this government is that there's been expenditure that hasn't produced anything. $5.5 billion $5.5 billion is more than our commitment on childcare. It is double what our commitment to fix aged care has been on budget. $5.5 billion with just a torn-up contract.
You did back the French submarine deal. You did back the nuclear submarine deal.
We do support the nuclear submarine deal.
So what were they meant to do?
This government had, be clear, this government had a deal that they were going to do with the Japanese first. Then they were going to do a deal with the French. Then, having cost $5.5 billion, they then...
So they should have stuck with it?
They then changed. No, David, we supported the arrangements that were made. But across a whole range of whether it's helicopters, whether it be other areas of the Navy, Air Force, etc., we've seen a whole lot of waste, failure to produce increased capability. As Greg Sheridan from The Australian said just this week, if defence announcements made us more secure, we would be the most secure nation on earth.
This question's come up a bit during the campaign. Let me just see if we can clear it up tonight. Who will be your Defence Minister?
Our Defence Shadow Minister, Brendan O'Connor, is doing a fantastic job. And my expectation...
You know that doesn't answer the question.
Well, my expectation, David, everyone hasn't been elected yet, and the caucus elect our front bench, as you're aware.
Sure, but you can tell us what the Treasurer is. You can tell us...
My starting point is that those people who have their existing portfolios will continue in those roles.
And just coming back to Chris's question, how to mitigate the threat of China. How do you mitigate the threat of China?
Well, the truth is that this is going to be a challenge whoever's in government. That's the truth. We live in an era of strategic competition between the United States and China, including in our region. And we have the same position as the government on Hong Kong, on Taiwan, on the Uyghurs, on the South China Sea, on those issues. I take the view that my friend Kurt Campbell, the US leading representative in the Indo-Pacific, speaks about competition without catastrophe. That has to be the objective here. The consequences of military conflict, we're seeing what's happening in Russia and Ukraine. No one wants that. But we need to recognise the competition is there, which is why we can't afford on the Solomons, the advice was there from at least last August. The foreign minister didn't go.
Well, that's contested, to be clear. But would a Chinese military base
Well,
there be a red line?
The government have said they have known for months. The government has said that.
Yeah, not since August last year. Would it be a red line for you for the Chinese to build a military base there?
Certainly, that would be unacceptable, and we need to make sure.
How would you stop it?
Well, we need to make sure that we engage with the Solomons. We've announced a considerable and detailed Pacific policy that goes to a range of measures.
Do you think it's going to stop this base that you say is unacceptable?
I think if we build... Australia has been, since the Second World War, the preferred security partner in the Pacific. That has been the case for all of those decades since the Second World War. What happened here is that we've had a dropping of the ball. We had cuts to foreign aid. We had a failure to take seriously the issue
but what happens
of
now?
climate change.
If it looks like a base is going to be built there, what do you do as Prime Minister?
Well, the objective will be, David, to stop that happening.
How?
To stop that happening through the programs and policies that we've put forward by engaging. How is it that the current Prime Minister still hasn't picked up the phone to the Prime Minister of the Solomons?